When people gave me their ideas for our countdown to Christmas, there were lots of cooking utensils and barbecue tools included. And I can't find where anybody actually suggested a pair of barbecue tongs, but that's something I need for my own barbecue, so I thought that would be a good thing to do for our countdown to Christmas projects. So today I'm going to start with a piece of 1/2-inch round bar that is 24 inches long. It's about 13 millimeters by I think 60 centimeters long. Again, it doesn't matter too much. The key element here is that you've got to forge from the center out 2 matching halves. So you have to make both sides pretty much the same. I'm going to come in 10 inches from both sides and make a mark. That leaves me with 4 inches in the center here, and this is where we're going to thin this out to make it springy before we finish the rest of the tongs. And I want to start with this part. And I'm just going to put a little notch in at the edge of the anvil that I'll be able to find again when it's hot. And we want to heat this up and draw this out in between these 2 notches. You should be able to find your little notch just by rubbing it against the edge of the anvil. And I don't want to do half-face blows here. I want a smooth transition. Find my other notch. And I just forge this out in between. I want to make this a little bit wider. I think that's going to get nice and long, but I'd like it to be a little wider. And for that, I'm going to use a rounding hammer. So we spread it widthwise and lengthwise simultaneously. Also leaves a better transition at the ends. In a place where it's thin, it's still thick in the other direction. So I can see it's spread out more here than it is here. So that means there's a thick spot right there. We're about done with that part. So I want to check the length. It's 10 inches, which is what I set out for. That one's a hair over. So I need to take a little bit more from this end. So I'm going to bring this shoulder back a little bit. And try to get this all to even width. That's about an 1/8 inch thick. And it's pushed to one side, but there's a smooth, kind of a scoop going into it, so there's no sharp edges. Remember, that's kind of a spring. It's 9 7/8, 9 7/8. So that's the same. That's what I want. Just a little bit more cleanup there. Now what I want to do is I want to taper my ends. I want these a little bit longer and thinner as it gets down to the working end, but I want to leave the working end full thickness. So I'm going to come back about 1 inch and just put a gentle taper in here. This is just drawn out square octagon around, leaving a full thickness at the end here. And you can certainly draw this out over the horn. I'm going to take this down to about 3/8 of an inch square before I round it up. But I want to leave it full 1/2 inch, not just at this end, but at this end. So this is a taper to blend back the parent stock. And the fact that I'm off here, this isn't flat, doesn't matter because we're going to round this up. Let's get a nice even taper before we go to octagon. Start going to octagon. And then once we get octagon, we'll go round. I'm going to worry about rounding up this fat end first, so I don't have to keep reheating it if I don't finish it. Doing a nice transition from the original 1/2 inch round bar down to about a 3/8 or slightly under round bar. Or that's what I want. You could make these out of square bar and put twists in them. You can make them out of flat bar. Feel free to use your imagination. By continuing to work down into the black heat, that just helps smooth things up and refine it a little bit. So that's pretty much all I'm after. I think before I do this end, I'm going to draw this end out so I can make from here to here, or from here to the very end, the same. And to help with that, I'm going to put a mark on my anvil at the end of that, so I know from this shoulder here to this mark is that long, and when I do this other one, I'll make it match. I'll leave the same amount hanging over. There's a little bit too long of a heat here. No reason to heat that spring section. I think I'll cool that off. See if that'll behave better. In fact, I might be able to hand hold it if I cool it off. Yeah, it's much more controllable. That's got about 1 inch to go. We may need to draw it out just a little bit more. It's going to stretch some as we round it. Just like the other one, I'm going to get this all nice and rounded up. I think it's going to end up needing to draw out just a hair more. You also want to look at it and compare. I think my taper on the first side runs further towards the spring, so I want to draw it out in this area. So we'll go back to a little bit of square and some octagon. Round this up. Also remember that material stretches lengthwise or expands under heat. So you want to do your final measurement checking cold. But if at this heat it's not long enough, it's certainly not going to stretch as it cools. So you want to make it just a hair longer, really. Yeah, another heat probably. So at this point, just look for anything that looks like it might be a little fat, draw it out. And each time, go square, then return to the octagon, and return to the round. Keep your eye out for fat spots and take care of them now. There, be close. Yep, we're just about a 1/4 inch too long, which when it shrinks might be just right. So I'm going to let that cool. So this end we have 1.5 inches for the gripper end and 11 inches to our spring. And here we're about 11 1/4 inches to the spring and only 1.25 inches for the gripper. So we're the same length, but this is going to need to be taken down. If I draw it out, it's going to get longer. So I'm going to probably just grind or file that down. Well, it's ideal to get this perfect at the forge. If you don't, go ahead and take the time to file and grind it so that it is correct. I'm just using a 60 grit flap disc on an angle grinder. I want to spread these ends. I'm going to do a version of a half-face blow here in a second. They're kind of in line with the piece here. What I'm going to do this next heat, I want to turn this way and do a half-face blow, and then this way and do a half-face blow, and try and create a little point in there. So make sure you got it in the right place, and try and match it on the other side. It's always hard to match the angle left-handed and right-handed. But that's not too bad. Hopefully you can see that leaves a little point right there. This will take some more filing if you want it to be real neat and crisp. I'll cool that off, and then we'll do the same thing to the other end. So we start off just by spreading. And create our half-face blows. And create our little transition point there. And you want these both on the same side of the tongs. For me, I want them on the outside of the tongs. But if you get it wrong, because these are round, you can always twist the round stock and nobody will be the wiser. Okay. So that's pretty much the setup. I want to do some more grinding, filing, whatever. Clean these up, make them look like I want. Do any cleanup in here. And I think I'm going to file a couple of round grooves in just for decoration here. First thing I want to do is just clean up the profile of the jaws or the pincher part. And I suppose this is a good time to decide if you want teeth in this. I don't really think they need it. None of the commercial ones I've used really have teeth. Another thing I want to do is just make this smoother, take some of the hammer marks out. Just a bit more of a refined finish. And you don't have to do that. That's just what I choose to do at this moment. And filing a little bit with the length helps make it smoother and it comes out a little bit better. Now with this all filed clean and smooth so it's comfortable to hold, I'm going to put a couple of little filed in bands in here just for ornamentation. But because I won't be able to see my silver pencil that I usually use, I'm going to put some layout blue on here first, and I'm just going to go about 3 inches. And just put a little spot there that I can find again. This is perhaps more work than you need to go through. And with that dry, I can be much more precise in my layout for my marks. And I'm just going to put them a 1/4 inch apart. The length from the end really doesn't matter that much. Just try to make them the same on both sides, they'll look better. I'm at 9 1/4, 9 1/2, but like I say, that's not all that critical. And again, this is just because it's what I feel like doing. So I can take a 1/2 round file and just use the corner of it, or the edge of it, I should say. Work your way around. I'm putting the 1/2 round in the middle of the band so that it leaves a little bit of a bevel there and a straighter edge on the other side. These don't need to be super deep, just enough that you can see them again. Then once you've got that to connect all the way around, you can kind of roll the file and round up this center section and make a little bead out of it. Now it's time to turn this into a pair of tongs and see if everything lines up the way we meant it to. I'm going to start with just a little back bend at the end of the jaw there, and then come over the horn and curl that in so it makes a nice gripping end. So that's something like this. Do the same thing to the other end. There will almost certainly be some adjustments after we bend it to make them match. But the closer they are before you bend it, the less fiddly it'll be later. So we want to back bend towards the side that has our little half-face blow detail. And then just put a gentle curve in here without destroying the back bend. And try and make both ends look the same. Like I say, we're going to have to tweak this a little bit. I think that's just inevitable. Next thing we need to do then is heat this up and bend it. Now I've been quenching the ends of this so I can hold on to both ends. I want to start just by getting a nice bend going there. Now I can put this in the fire and not worry about these getting hot so much, and we can start shaping this the way we want it. I have a piece of pipe welded to a hardy stem I'm going to use. We'll see if this is the right size. I didn't plan it for this size. It's a piece of 2-inch pipe. And I think it's a little bit too big. What I want to do is I want to bring the ends of this in closer and make the spring part wrap wider. And that's mostly for looks. So I got this big piece of tool steel I bought for making hammers out of. It's only about 1.5 inches in diameter, so let's see if that works better. If I was going to make a bunch of these, I would plan a size and make a tool just for this. And while I don't want these tight in the long run, this just gives me a way to move my ring in. Then I'm going to have to put it back around that round bar to clean it up. And no, you don't need a piece of 1045 steel to do this. Piece of pipe, piece of mild steel, whatever you happen to have. This vise doesn't like to hold round stuff like this. But I'm pretty happy with that now. I think if I were to do it again, I would use at least 50% more material here and make that a lot bigger. Now our decorative lines almost line up and our jaws are off in the same direction. So if we can fix one, we should be able to fix the other. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to do for this end. I've got a little bit of a twist in my jaws I need to fix, so we'll cool this and then heat this up and try and fix that. Last thing I'm going to do with these is just open them up. So you have to squeeze them to make them work instead of pull them open to make them work. That's pretty much it. Now because I took the time to file these nice and clean, I'm also going to take some Scotch-Brite and I'm going to shine them up just a little bit. And then I'll put just an oil finish on them instead of my usual wax. And that'll be an edible oil, something out of the kitchen. Something you're willing to have in contact with your food. But I think this ended up being a nice little set of barbecue tongs. In the hindsight is 2020 department, I would have allowed a lot more material here. I was thinking 50% more. I think at least double. I think this would look much better as a bigger loop. Maybe even allow 3 times as much material so it could be a heavier loop. And your tongs will take more effort to squeeze, but they probably won't go out of adjustment as often. You're probably going to have to grab these and open them, spring them back open from time to time. These are just mild steel. They're not tool steel. No reason to harden and temper the spring. It's not going to do you any good in mild steel. And I don't think it needs to be tool steel. You just might have to fiddle with it some. But if you want to make them out of spring steel, go ahead. I wouldn't harden and temper anything but the spring, but even then I think that's really unnecessary for something like this. Oh, that looks a lot better with some Scotch-Brite. Anyways, you don't need to sit here and watch me Scotch-Brite my barbecue tongs. Unfortunately, there's a snowdrift right next to the barbecue, so I don't know if I'm going to go cook with these or not, but I do have some bratwurst in the freezer, so as soon as that snow melts, we're going to try these out. If you enjoyed this project, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to support the channel financially, there are links in the description for both PayPal and Patreon, and those are just donations. The content is free and will remain free. Stick around, watch a few of the other videos. Be sure to share the videos with your friends, but then make time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, but stay safe, wear your safety glasses. Happy holidays, and we will see you later.